Welcome everybody to this regularly scheduled board meeting of the South Tahoe PUD. Would you all please rise and join me in the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all for coming. See some familiar faces, but not very frequent visitors in the audience, so that's nice. Do we have any comments from the audience on non-agenda items? No. Okay, let's move on to corrections to the agenda or consent calendar. Anybody have anything for that? All right, let's have a motion then.
I'll second that.
Okay, unanimous vote on that one. Next up on the agenda is 2019 asphalt patching and paving trenches services. Chris, you were talking on that one?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Before we start, there is one correction I'd like to make on the agenda, and that is the asphalt patching portion of this contract. I had $358,493.66. I'd like to change that to $302,456.16.
All right. I think we can do that. You want to give us a little pitch on this?
Sure.
Or we jump right into it?
Every year, as you guys know, ladies, we go out to bid for our patches that we do throughout the winter and throughout the summer. And this year we went out and it was awarded to GD Construction. And this year we asked for the $193,387.50 for the total package. But $137,000 of that was for patching alone, all of our holes for new services, water leaks, etc. We had another $27,000 for Fairway Avenue where we did the water main last summer. And then we had another $29,000 in there for McAdee. We planned on going over there this summer and doing a main extension to make it a loop system. Fairway was done, McAdee was not. Instead, I remember talking about going and doing Lower Road. That was a problem area, so we did that instead. So just give you a little background of where I'm starting here. Normally, years ago, you told us, please try to estimate a little higher so we didn't have to keep coming back. Years ago, that we were coming back all the time. And we've been doing a good job of it for the last few years. But unfortunately, this year, we all got hit a lot harder with paving costs. The county, we talked about it before, I believe I mentioned it in staff reports, that you have a 3-foot by 6-foot bell hole is what we call it. We used to go 1 foot past that hole and then do the paving, so the paving has something solid to sit on the side, just what we had dug up. And we were doing that for years, but this year the county changed some of the process of how they mark out patches and want us to do a little bit more. So basically, long story short, a 3-foot by 6-foot hole, we were probably paying $700 to $800 to have it patched. With their new rules, they're going up 10 feet on each side of the patch and all the way out to the middle of the road. So basically, we were paying $700 to $800 for a patch. We're now paying $2,300 to $2,500 a patch. And we've met with the county. We've already been out once and talked to Mike Broadhurst and some other gentlemen there, and went over what their reasoning was on it. And on the main roads, I had a little problem with it at first, but then once it was explained to me, it does make sense. That on your main roads, instead of just having a 3-foot wide patch, where a car comes, you boom, you hit it like a speed bump. They're going out farther, which they say is better for the patch. It gets it out of the tire line as you're going down the road. And then it's more of an ease onto the patch. In other words, you come up, you hit it for a second, and then go down. On the main arteries, I've learned to understand that I can accept that. But when you have a side street, where there's hardly any traffic and the road is terrible, I mean, as you see, the county roads are cracked up, they're just a disaster. We're having to do the same thing out there. And there's no stopping. I mean, you just go and it's cracked everywhere. So we're having a little issues with that, but I think in the long run, working with the county, we've already kind of got the feeling that some of the people there are willing to work with us. So that's what we're hoping to do, but we just haven't had a lot of time since they initiated this to take care of all that. So just so you guys know where we're trying to head here. But normally, if I budget $137,000, that covers the city and county paving for the year. Normally, we don't have to come back and ask for any money. Right now, we've paid out $105,000, city and county. But I have outstanding bills right now where it's $150,000 alone for what we owe for the county right now, and then another $46,000 for the city. So that's why we're here today to ask for basically another $165,000 for the patching. That's what we're hit with, and there's not a whole lot at this point that we can do about it.
When did they change their requirements?
I received an email roughly about the beginning, middle of July, I believe it was.
Did they consult with you at all before changing them? No, they did not.
We talked about that a little bit. So we became aware last year, last summer, that the county was looking to do something like that. We were notified by Eldorado Irrigation District, and we co-signed a letter with Eldorado Irrigation District about their concerns about these increased requirements. And the county then said, oh, we're not going to do anything, we're not going to do anything. So we stopped our efforts to try to reduce that and engage on it. And then they issued at staff level, they issued these guidance and these requirements that did not go to the city council or county supervisors for approval, and they have the authority to do that. But these came out ultimately as a surprise to us. Apparently they had been issued on the west slope previously, and eventually trickled their way into the Tahoe Basin. Going forward, our intent going forward on this effort is that we have gotten a copy of the contract that Eldorado Irrigation has with the county to resolve the issue that we had on the emergency project with the paving and not being able to collaborate in the end to have a good solution on that, so that we can work on construction projects, capital projects together in the future. Our intention is to use that and the senior staff at the county to engage with them on that front, and then bring them out in the spring, those same people, bring them out in the spring and walk some of these patches that have been marked with what they've been requesting, so that we can show them that what you're looking at is, here's an alligator section of road, and now the county is marking out this very large patch, and then another alligator section of road. There's no value in doing these repairs to this extent on those types of roads. My impression is that the county staff in the Tahoe Basin don't really have authority to overrule what they've been directed to do. And so we need to get the senior staff folks at the county engaged. Now is not the time to do that. In my opinion, it's in the spring. If we are not successful on that front, then we'll begin to push and come back to you and talk about other actions with the board of supervisors, going to Sell and others to try and get some support to get those changes made in the board.
Are you still just doing the foot on either side for city projects?
For city?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, when you have the patch and say it's 2.5 feet away from the edge of the road, we just go to the edge of the road. I mean, it would be ridiculous to leave little pieces like that. But I've been doing this a long time, and that 1 foot past the patch seems to work very well.
I find it interesting that we're talking 3 times the amount, if I got the numbers right. 700, 2,800.
Yeah.
They made this more arbitrarily. They made it at their staff level, right, and issued it without going through any sort of.
I mean, I heard you explain the reasoning behind it, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
I'd be able to swallow it, but I wouldn't taste it.
I agree with Shannon's approach. For now, unfortunately, we're just going to have to bite the bullet and pay this bill. But I think we need to aggressively pursue this at a little higher levels and local staff to get
I thought about going and finding, Arizona Pipeline and Southwest Gas, and the other utilities have to follow that same rule, right?
Yes, and they do. We've seen their patches.
And they have a problem with it, I'm sure, as well, because yes, my cul-de-sac now has a giant stripe through it that was a 1-foot trench, and now it's a 20-foot patch.
Yeah.
The length of the cul-de-sac.
And the hard part is, customers, you go out and you install a new service, a new fire line for them. We were charging them, like I said, $700 to $1,000 per patch. Now I'm charging them $2,500 plus on a lot of patches, on top of everything else. So it's hard for me.
So you can make an argument that this additional cost is preventing fire outbreak.
I don't think it's preventing it because people are still going to build the house.
Right. But adding additional cost.
That's hard. We're a public agency, and whenever you hit a customer with something like that, it's hard for me, and hard for a lot of other people here in the district. And yeah, we would like to pursue it. We just need a little bit more time to make sure we do it correctly.
Just real quick, I just want to add to that. Keeping that in mind, if we can't lower this cost come building season of next year, we are going to have to look at raising the T&M costs for the people who do get out in the county. So I just want to keep you a heads up on that as well.
Okay, yeah. So, the short answer is yeah. The long answer is let's see what fix this. I agree. Okay.
A lot of us agree.
If there's no other questions?
Yeah, well, you changed it on us. Read the right one.
Well, no, that didn't have anything to do with that. Staff is requesting the board to approve final change order number 1 in the amount of $165,106.16 to GE General Engineering Contractor Incorporated, and 2, approve notice of completion for the 2019 asphalt patching and trench paving services contract.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's unanimous there. So now we have the transfer of city units for public agencies, which is why I think we have some guests in the audience on this topic. So we'll let Tim go first.
Good afternoon. As you know, a while back, we had passed an ordinance to do transfer of services for affordable housing. And then I believe it was at our November 21st meeting, we had came back to you to report that we'd like to do that for public agencies as well. This would allow public agencies to transfer services within the agency itself from one cost to the other. That's what it costs. We found that this was designed development for public agencies. It would be in the best interest of the public savings and everything else. So today, there are probably any questions. I will ask you to, and I've practiced this in here for a long time, I'm so great. Approve ordinance 577-19, adding a new section 1.1.109, renumbering existing section 1.1.109, and subsequent definitions, and amending section 4.8.14 of the administrative code regarding transferring of sewer units for public agencies.
Well, despite that butchering, I'll give you some move on that.
I'll be back into that.
And before we vote on this, let's discuss it just a little bit. For those of you that weren't here, we discussed this at our last meeting fairly extensively, but we can maybe recap a little bit of what we talked about. And we are talking about taxpayer, or in this case, a city taxpayer, but also there are ratepayers' money, and we just thought it'd be in the best public good not to be charging an agency which is basically just going to end up collecting money from our ratepayers to pay for it. And I mean, that's what am I missing here? We discussed several other things too.
I think I agree, you know, these are just stranded units to some degree, getting these back on the line, start getting some revenue generated. They're just stranded now, it's a great idea. Again, not sticking with the bill onto our rate payer as well. I think I can agree with that as well, so thinking to help the city move forward.
And we are talking about in this one case, we were talking about a temporary usage of these units until they get their new station built. And then I don't know if the new station is going to require a transfer again also, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, any comments from our esteemed audience members? Look, you see, Frank, come on up. I'd rather hear you this way.
No, I have no portfolio.
Y'all are fun bunch for sure. No, just on behalf of the city council, the city staff, I really just wanted to thank you all for considering this amendment to your ordinance. We talked about it at the subcommittee with Chris and with Randy, and I just appreciate the thought, and again, thank you.
Okay, Dwayne. The esteemed Mr. Wallace, excuse me.
Thank you, Your
Thank you.
Excellency. Board members, you're to be commended for this because our community is 3,200 units behind where we need to be. And it was the district that decided to cut your utility connection fees in half to start the domino. And the city has responded by saying we have all these units, we'd like to put them into action. And if we can keep this going, enough of the agencies will take the stuff they have, commit them to this affordable housing crisis, and perhaps solve it or at least alleviate it in some way. And it will be the district that was the first ones who did it, and you're following up. I appreciate that you understand that the people already own these, and that, you know, for one government to charge another government is just to double charge the people. So you're very smart. I appreciate it, and I appreciate that you've come out first. It's funny that a sewer agency would be the first ones to attack affordable housing, but I'm proud of you for having done it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Okay, yeah, I just want to mention Dwayne and all his leadership on the side on the board, because certainly, I mean, you could say he was, you know, along with all the board members, but he's certainly a champion for affordable housing and getting that going in the community, and was really the voice of saying how important that was, you know, till today. So, you know, just want to commend Dwayne Wallace as well and on his leadership, bringing that issue forward for the community.
All right, cool. If you haven't voted, go ahead and have your vote in.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That passed 5-0. Okay, it looks like we have the election board officers. Your name is associated with this one.
Associated with this, so we are nominating a new board president for the 2020 calendar year. So the floor is open for nominations.
Well, I said I'm open to have somebody else step in if anybody wants it, but I will be glad to do it again if you guys want to. Okay. It's kind of quiet around here. So we have a nomination. Do we need a second then?
Yes, we need. Oh, I'll second.
Okay.
I didn't know we needed seconds. I would have done it long ago.
I thought you were going to jump into that.
So moved by Stefan, seconded by Sheehan, to elect Randy Vogelstein as board president for the 2020 calendar year.
Okay, well, thank all of you. Unanimous vote there. It's way more than I expected. Yeah, and Woody, good point.
Okay, the next up, we have vice president. We need a nomination for vice president for 2020 calendar year.
Well, I think it's been working pretty good, so I'd like to nominate Kelly for the vice president spot one more time. Is that all right with you, Kelly?
Yes, that is all right for me, and I'll echo Randy's thoughts that if someone else is interested, I'm more than happy to give them a chance, but I find that Randy and I seem to work well together. He doesn't ask too much of me. So I'll gladly do it. We've got moved by Vogelsang, second by Sutherland, to elect Kelly Sheehan as board vice president for the 2020 calendar year.
Okay, unanimous, thank you, Kelly. Okay, claims.
I move approval of payment claims in the amount of $1,589,627.06.
I'll second. Okay, 5-0 again. Next, we move on to standing and ad hoc committee reports. I will go first about our city ad hoc committee. Yeah, I know, so I'm curious. Now, Frank, are you gonna be at the next one, or are you gonna be in Big Bear? What is that?
The next one?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think I'll be going.
Okay, well, we're gonna miss you, Frank.
We can talk about it.
Feel free to blame anything you'd like on.
Yeah. You won't be able to hear it from Big Bear, will you? So Tamara, how do you envision this working then? Will you have an acting city manager that will sit in these meetings?
Acting or interim, one or the other. We're working on an interim. We may or may not need an acting in between.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything on this thing? How about board member reports?
I was just gonna say, the city staff in attendance, and Frank, that last Monday was the City of South Lake Tahoe's Climate Action Plan kickoff meeting. It was attended by John and Julie as well. And I have to say, in my time in Tahoe, if it wasn't contentious or didn't have free booze, this was the most well-attended event I've been to. And I took that as a very positive sign for all our efforts going forward. And really excited to work with the city, continue to work with the city on this effort and SCPD staff. So thank you so much, Frank, for your leadership.
Cool. Under board member reports, I'd like to talk about our Washington DC meeting. It was attended by usually Shannon and one of the staff. We go sometimes, and here we goes a lot also. I have a reason that I'm actually going to be in the Washington DC area this year at that time. So I thought as long as I'm back there, I probably shouldn't pass up this meeting and figure out how all that works back there. So I'm going to go. Shannon's going to go this year. Jim approached me, and he would like to also go. And I kind of wanted to get a feel from the board what you feel about funding an additional board member to go to these meetings. I personally think it's a little overkill, but I just wanted to hear what you guys thought. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah.
Make a case.
Yeah, we've actually sent two people back at times, one to represent CASA and one to represent Aqua. And when Eric Schaefer was on the board, we would do that because he was very active in the CASA, and I've always been active with Aqua. And this year, I plan on going because I've been very active with the revisions on the Headwaters policy document, and I've been working with Dave Reynolds and Dave Egerton and some other people, and we've made a lot of contacts with some of the other offices in Washington that have potential sports, health, or fire bills that they're going to be presenting this year. And we've been working on, either trying to get something, a line item in one of the bills, or get some support for, going to the National Science Foundation for a grant that, we would use. And we're talking about a unit that would be an independent, not part of the ADJOURNMENT as such, but, that would be independent of federal and state agencies that would coordinate, collect, coordinate information, be a clearinghouse for documents regarding forest health and that type of thing. And what they were finding in the research that's been done is that if you've got a forest that is healthy, it's more like what we used to have before with all the overgrowth and undergrowth and things like that. We maybe get 15% more runoff in the Sierras, and that's important in California. So what we're proposing is something similar that I did when I first came up here with the National Science Foundation, and but on a much larger scale. And but anyway, they were expecting me to be in Washington to work on this more with some of the offices back there. And I always felt that, and I'll give a report, a board member report here in a few minutes about Aqua and the things that they do. And I've always felt that it's good to have somebody go to one of those meetings, understand the magnitude of what's done through Aqua, the issues, and what they have an office in Washington, so they're really involved in a lot of things, and they've helped us a lot, especially during the MTBE problems, and over the years we've got a lot of benefit to be associated with them. Anyway, so I kind of plan on going, and I heard that I wasn't, so it's not invited, or I'm not sure what's happening, so, make your decision.
Jan, would you like to add something?
Yeah, if I can add a few things. Randy, when we spoke earlier, I had kind of neglected to think about Jim's role and what he's been doing with the headwaters issues. And there is, I think, a lot of value for us as an agency, but also for headwaters in general, for his knowledge and his advocacy and consistency in what we've been working on, both within Aqua and with these legislators. So I agree with Jim that there's absolutely value, and there are some interesting things happening on that front at this time. The thing I do also would like to kind of propose maybe other things to think about, and that would be alternatives. One is that if one of you wanted to go and attend a portion of the time, so I think we've talked about in the past that the days when we are making the rounds on the Hill with the legislators are the most impactful days and the most valuable days. And so and then certainly with our delegation having one of our elected officials at those meetings with those congressmen and senators, that is a very valuable time, and I think probably some of the most important time for us as an agency to continue to develop those relationships and show that our elected officials are there to convey from one elected official to another elected official, this is what's going on, this is what's important to our community, rather than that just coming from staff. And so that's an alternative, is if for only a portion of the week, two board members were back there, that's an option. The other option is that two board members go and that I as staff don't go, recognizing that we are represented by David French and Eric Saperstein back in Washington. They can absolutely carry the water on our issues, and can certainly handle that kind of staff responsibilities on the advocacy for the district on our behalf. So I put out those kind of two alternatives and options and put them on the table. So again, two board members and myself, one of those being part-time, two board members going back full-time as alternatives to three of us.
I suggest at least that Shannon go, because he's working on this stuff every day, 7.
Excellent. I agree with that.
And he's got a much better knowledge, especially of Aqua, because he's been on the board with Aqua, and as well as our operational things that we do here, and that's usually the last couple of days of the week, after the conference is over, we usually go around to the people in the Nevada and the California delegation, and keep them informed of what we're doing, so that, they can help us in their years that we don't need their help, but it's good to be there and keep them informed, and so that we don't wait until we have a problem and then we go running back there and they wonder, well, who the hell are you? So it's worked pretty good over the years. I especially like this year with the headwaters issue stuff. It's not that much too.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on this? For myself, I'm willing to take Jim and Shannon at their word for it. They're the ones who go to this all the time. What Melanie, I hate to put you on the spot. How much does it cost to send a board member?
I was gonna ask that question.
It's about $5,000
About $5,000.
between the hotel, the transportation, airfare, and the conference registration.
On one hand, $5,000 is a lot of money. On the other hand, compared to our annual budget, it's not a lot of money.
That's kind of where I'm thinking as well, is, we've always been kind of supportive of the lobbying effort, and I think, Shannon's updated us multiple times about some of the benefits. I think it was the meeting, 1 or 2 meetings ago, when you were, updating about the possibility of funding for fire infrastructure. I mean, that piece alone, if there was getting any word in front of people, we can start to realize those opportunities. I would think that the $5,000 to get, in addition to get Randy and Jim there, if we can start to make these things a reality, would be well worth it.
If I can just dovetail on that issue, I had some phone conversation with David Prince this morning back in Washington, and they're about, it appears that this week they will pass an appropriations bill, despite everything else that's going on. It's the stuff that will keep the government running. And there does appear to be additional funding going into the Forest Service and the community cooperative forestry program, which is kind of what has funded the fire partnership in the past, as well as additional funds being designated for what Tahoe Restoration Act, particularly forest management, which is where those fire infrastructure projects are occurring. And so we were strategizing about working with Forest Service folks here in the state, and this will certainly be part of our topic and conversation going back there and trying to make sure that those appropriations are getting directed and that we at least have a chance at going after that money. There definitely is value in all three of us going back.
And that kind of goes to my point, that, just, hypotheticals, but let's just say you were working, that angle completely, and Randy took the load off of you and was looking at some other things. Those opportunities alone seem to more than pay for the additional airfare.
We're lucky we live at Lake Tahoe. That opens a lot of doors. Over the years, it's really helped us, and especially if you go back to the MTV thing, we were able to get in and do some things, and that some other small district.
Trying to say we're more Modesto than we're doing.
Yeah, I think that.
We're big there.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that discussion. I think I kind of know where we're going to go on this. All right, Jim, you said you had a board report also?
Yeah, Shannon and I were at the Aqua last week. Evo, he's not here, is he? Oh, no. Evo was also there for one day on the groundwater stuff, and so just kind of give you an overview of what happened there. There were about 1,800 attendees, all the important people involved with water in California were there. They had 80 sessions, different sessions, discussing all sorts of things, and I'll get into some of that. And about 100 exhibitors in the exhibit hall. And Shannon and I spent a lot of time there talking to some purveyors, consultants, and people that might want to do some work for us up here. So that was very helpful. Now let me give I have a tape that's the opening session that kind of describes basically what they were going to do the next the week through that week. It's only about 4 minutes long, I think, but it gives you a pretty good idea of the magnitude of what's happening with Aqua, what kind of group they are.
I'd be a little loud now, sir.
Toward water resilience in the face of a changing climate. Finding solutions for safe drinking water. Restore collaboration for a sustainable concept. This is California Water Today, Power, Partnership, in Action. Welcome to San Diego for the 2019 Aqua Fall Conference and Exhibition, a premier place for water professionals to connect and stay informed on our top priorities. Here's what's on tap this week. We kick it off in minutes with perspective from Sivan Cohen, the CEO of Norway Water Technologies, with a focus on how Israel is addressing water resiliency and the lessons California can learn. At today's luncheon, we welcome Medford Water Rights attorney Alan Lilly, speaking as the first ever presiding hearing officer to lead the state water board's new administrative hearings office, ensuring fairness with California's water rights rules. At Thursday's luncheon, Army Corps of Engineers Division Chief Kerry Talbot takes the stage with a closer look at how the Corps' forecast-informed reservoir operations he manages, is improving flexibility and maximizing water supplies. And Friday, award-winning political journalist and LA Times Sacramento Village, John Myers, will address attendees at the Huntsville Past President's Breakfast in partnership with ADJOURNMENT. Don't miss this afternoon's Town Hall Forum, an interactive, in-depth look at Governor Newsom's water resilience portfolio. Join featured speaker Karen Ross, California Secretary of Food and Agriculture, for a look at the portfolio's scope and policy goals and the proposed actions to ensure safe and resilient water supplies. Our statewide issue forum started this morning with achieving groundwater sustainability, a toolbox approach. With signature deadlines looming, analysts delve into the available tools to meet the diverse challenges of groundwater sustainability and provide a vision of how to implement them locally. Thursday morning, the latest on safe drinking water, the next step toward implementing solutions, the passage of SB 200, and the statewide drinking water needs assessment underway. Those are just a few of more than 80 meeting program sessions featuring diverse perspectives from all over the state. Use the guidebook app or your conference program to find the full schedule. Lead this conference, recognizing the critical role technology plays in everything. Aqua is adding a brand new technology track to its lineup, understanding cybersecurity threats and how water agencies can better protect themselves from cyber attacks. Wednesday afternoon, take it to the cloud, how cloud computing benefits the water world, and lessons learned from tech experts and water professionals. We're also offering human resources programs. Thursday morning, a section on the link between employee engagement and agency success, and tips to drive and track employee engagement. Thursday afternoon, experts explore the best skills to onboard new employees, and why it's critical to business success. Also this week, recognizing our outstanding water professionals. This morning, we'll announce the winner of the Hugel-Hauser Best in Blue Award, and honor Brad Hilscher, Executive Legislative Representative of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, with the Lifetime Achievement Award. We'll also award Dylan Solis, Harvard Law School, the 2019 Stephen K. Hall Aqua Water Law and Policy Scholarship. And today's luncheon, Kathy Tees, Board Director of Cucamonga Valley Water District, and former Aqua President, will receive the John P. Fraser Emissary Award. And we'll announce the winners of the Aqua Outreach Awards and the Aqua Sponsorship Awards at Thursday's luncheon. And don't forget, Aqua membership will elect the new president and vice president immediately following Wednesday's luncheon. For your Thursday night dinner and entertainment, Miller Dual Pianos, the #1 all-requested single-wall dual piano show in the nation, the April International from Cambridge to Barcelona. As always, connect with your colleagues in multiple networking events. And stop by the exhibit hall, filled with 100+ exhibitors showcasing solutions for our industry. We're also offering water professionals 26 continuing education opportunities for attorneys, drinking water operators, and finance and energy professionals. And the ability to earn up to 6 CLE credits. The dawn of the next decade is upon us, and it's a new era of partnerships in action that will help us provide for the future.
Thank you, Brett.
It's kind of an overview of what happens on us. They have one other track besides the lawyers and the managers and things like that on cyber policies and cyber hacking. And they're going to start doing that and continuing at the next conference and beyond. And I think it might be good for somebody from IT to be there next time. And maybe Melanie, when the announcements come out, maybe get one of that to them. Monday, the first day was the JPIA, and that's the one that I usually attend. Well, anyway, and they brought us up to date on the workers' comp, liability, property, employees' benefits, or a couple of them are actually gone down. The PPO and the dental have gone down 1 to 2%, just because of the agreements that they've been able to work out with the different groups. Vision is no change at all. There's no increase. But coming up in the near future, there's a little depressing the reports that they're coming up with, that the costs, because of all of the major catastrophes, not just here in California or the United States, but around the world, it's just exploded. And there's only so much money in London and the places where they have the big insurance companies for reinsurance and excess insurance, that they feel that there's going to be some significant increases in things like the property and liability stuff. And they had some data on that. I can get you some of that too. Tuesday is the committees usually, and I attended the water quality and the groundwater sessions. There was a lot of discussion about SB 200, which is at $1.3 million this year, in looking to help adapt communities to adapt to changing conditions. And a lot of it's really aimed at disadvantaged communities or troubled systems where some places don't even have water. They can't pump. They can't afford staff. They can't afford consultants. So there's going to have to be some changes there to provide for this community. PFAS was there was a lot of discussion about that in several different sessions. There was actually a lawyer session that I attended about that. And we don't have a problem here like some other communities are going to have. But it's beginning to sound like the MTBE issue. It was originally developed by 3M, but Monsanto and a lot of the other big chemical companies have gotten involved. There's already been lawsuits, and there's going to be a lot more from the talk that they're at the meeting. And it's a lot like MTBE, and I talked to some people who were there 20 years ago when I was actually the chairman of the MTBE committee for Aqua. And they had reports in the 80s, 70s and 80s, that the PFAS is going to be a problem, and covered it up. And it's just like what happened with the MTBE and the oil industry and the American Petroleum Institute. Covered up stuff and lied to EPA, Congress, and us, and when we got into the court. So it's, this is going to be big and probably orders of magnitude bigger than MTBE. There was also a lot of discussion about the microplastics and fibers. They're finding that everywhere. They're even finding it now in snow up here in the Sierras, because it just gets into the atmosphere and those things are floating around and they get caught in the rain. And so you probably got microplastics in your blood. Same thing with PFAS. They say that everybody's got PFAS because we all wear clothes that have water repellent factors in them, and as well as stain-resistant things like carpets and clothes and a lot of things. Evo attended the groundwater committee with me, and there was real discussion on where we're going and all the plans, and I asked him afterwards if anything, I didn't think it would be, but if there were any surprises to him, and he said no, that he thought everything was very in good shape as far as getting things done. There's a lady that, from EPA that talked about the emergency response plan, which we are already in the process of putting together. But Shannon, you said it's 2 years off now, our deadline. Some communities have a deadline next year. The larger ones, larger water purveyors will be going next year, and we're small ones, so we're 2 years down the line. But that will be for emergency response and a lot of issues there. There's a state water bill that's out there now. I don't know if it's passed or if it's still pending, but on water theft, and they're going to set fines of $1,000 for the first occurrence and $2,000 to $5,000 for the second and third. So that's more than we passed in our ordinance here. So that is interesting. And then we had a meeting on the headwaters issue, and basically the board has approved the policy that was presented to them. It's about a 6-page document. We're trying to reduce that down to 1 page. That's a summary that can be left in an office, just kind of summarizing things. So they don't want to see anything more than about 2 pages at the most when you go in there, because we got so many issues they're looking at. So we're cutting that down to have a document that can be left behind. And here's the booklet that with the description of what was happening there and so forth. And here's the JPIA book. There's a lot of information in here. If anybody's interested in that, I'll give this to Nancy. And I don't think you got one of these, did you?
No.
Yeah, but you can have this one because I've got another copy. Anyway, are there any questions?
If I can add one thing that came out of this, it's a topic of discussion at conferences, the conservation regulations that were passed, and the legislation was passed, and as the state develops these regulations, we are involved in stakeholder advisory group meetings on those topics. One of the things that was interesting was in trying to determine how much irrigable area is outside for water agencies. The state came up and flew Tahoe and turned it over to their consultants without talking to us. We volunteered to be part of one of the pilots for this program. They didn't tell us that they were doing it. They came up through the area and turned over their consultants. Their consultants looked at it and said, wow, we don't know how to do this. We can't figure this out. We can't figure out how to figure out how much area and what the water budget would be for outside water use in Tahoe or in the mountain communities. And so it's something they're, exactly.
We said that right from the start.
Just what we told them, and they said, yep, you're right. We can't figure out how to do that either. So we're really interested to see how that plays out in the future. It's something we continue to be engaged in. It was quite a topic of discussion as well as some groups within the Aqua conference. It was something that Aqua is very engaged in.
I've been involved with water issues for over 50 years now, one way or another. I always learn something when I go there, so it's a good learning session. You find out more about the water business and so forth. The next one will be the first week in May, and that'll be in Monterey.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. And if we don't have any other water reports, we can move on to the Elmore County Water Agency here.
And the December meeting was canceled as well.
There you go. Little vacation.
Well, I will say on that front, on the other county water agency, we had a conversation with Tim Payne, myself, and Shelley, and the Tahoe Alliance folks about this kind of lobbying for headwaters issues and doing some collaborative work with the water agency on those, to pool our resources, get in front of some agencies to talk about headwaters issues. And he seemed very supportive of that. We're very appreciative to have him speaking for us on that, on those issues.
Actually, I have another report too. I attended the ECC meeting yesterday.
That's right, thank you on Kelly's behalf.
She's going to get my next. And it was an interesting, good group. I think there were about 50 people here in the room, And
Must have been a good breakfast.
Little burritos for
Yeah.
breakfast. They were good. It's cold. So I just brought them up to date on some of the things that, things kind of slowed down with the end of construction season. That we're getting ready, starting the finance review for next spring.
Good, I think that brings us to, you, Shannon.
Just a couple things briefly. One is we have been out in the meadows with Toolcat, inspecting sewer mains. So again, if you hear, what is that vehicle, why is stupid out in the meadows? Because we're working on our sewer mains. And they've been doing that, they're doing that at night, starting about 4 o'clock. Yes, yeah, and condition assessment for the manholes. They were out, they've inspected 11 manholes, and they're gonna, once we get the portable TV camera that will fit on the Toolcat, they'll be going back out to do it again. The other thing I have to say is that Nancy Husband, our HR director, is going out on medical leave for 6 months, and Liz Kaufman will be our interim HR manager during that period. And so wish the best for Nancy, and we're really hoping that the test will come out really well. And that's all I've got.
Okay, which brings us on to staff and training reports, and speaking of Nancy, what's up here first?
Good afternoon. So as I had done with the property and workers' comp programs, I wanted to give you an update on the liability program renewal. As Jim alluded to, the property and liability is really a hard market right now. It took them longer to finalize the renewal. It's characterized by a high demand for insurance coverage and reduced supply, and then very stringent underwriting standards. So the excess premium cost for the liability program increased more than 50% from 2018. But the liability committee and the executive committee approved the renewal with no rate increase to the members. They were able to make up the difference in their revenues, with their revenues. Cyber liability also renewed at no additional cost. The excess carriers are now imposing strict guidelines for accepting the claims. The incident has to be shown to have commenced at a specific time and date during the coverage year. It has to become known to the member within 20 days and reported within 80 days. So I think they're going to be really scrutinizing even the process for liability claims. And then next year, they basically say that they're not going to be able to make up the difference with reserves, and to expect a 30 to 40% increase on just the liability, probably about the same on property as well. So that's going to be a substantial hit.
They had some statistics on that. It's just amazing how it's just gone up so much just in the past 3 years.
Yeah, and they had said that last year when they went through the renewal, they said, oh, well, this, fire is just an anomaly, and then 2 weeks later there was the Camp Fire. So not only California, but then globally, nationwide and globally, there's just, the losses are extreme. So.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Okay, sewer flow monitoring, snowpack monitoring.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Brand, and normally I get to work and focus my efforts on water meter installation project. I've been lucky enough to take over and lead our efforts of the sewer flow monitoring and our snowpack monitoring efforts. So I'm going to give you a summary of our activities that SCPD does and our focus. And I'll be open for questions. If you guys want to stop me at any point, please do. Otherwise, we can discuss afterwards if you have questions. So, a little long-winded, but in an effort to determine sources and locations of infiltration and inflow, the I&I, the district decided to look into sewer flow monitoring program in the fall of 2017. The program has installed 20 monitoring sensors in 17 different manholes, so manhole locations. And the sensors track velocity and depth of fluid within a section of pipe. Then these units, monitoring units will either store the data, and we can go collect the data off them, or the data will be sent through wireless connection back to a host site. So we've been doing this for the past 24 months and starting our third field season doing this, and this is a screenshot of our host site. So once the data is imported into the host site, we're able to gather and visually see the information that we're taking out the monitoring units themselves. So determining where I&I may be entering in wastewater collection infrastructure provides benefits in several ways, as you can all draw the conclusion by yourself. But first, it assists us in directing efforts for condition assessments of the system itself. Provides information for future project prioritization, and also providing information for developing a more accurate hydrologic model of the collection system. So this has been developed by our consultant, Corolla. So they're working on developing and getting a better water model together so we can better understand potential I&I events and what we need to plan for like pump station enhancements and upgrades or pipeline upgrades. Quick shot of a couple of our sites in the field and some of the tools that I use while I'm out there. So the district's using ADS's Triton Plus systems. On your far left, you're seeing basically the monitoring unit itself, which is a battery, stores data, and also has a cellular modem in there, which will send information out through an antenna. In the middle is a ring, which actually goes into the sewer line itself, and mounted onto that ring would be one of these sensors that you see on your far right there. The unit and ring are installed, and then once things are installed, we're able to start gathering data almost instantaneously. This graphic's pretty good, kind of showing how it's put together. So you've got the sensor and a ring in the actual sewer line with the Triton monitor being hung inside the sewer cone itself. These sites can be moved to better isolate where we want to look and find I&I. Several sites were moved about a year ago, prior to the 18-19 water season. And then we moved several sites again this October. And in doing that, the reason we're moving those is to better isolate some of these water or sewer basins into smaller sub-sewer basins, so we can start identifying if there's areas where we're actually seeing higher spikes in flow. So this was our first year. Then we moved forward, and last year this would be the location of sites. And if you look at the sites around the Upper Truckee Basin, which is the south end or bottom of this map, you'll notice that we added a couple more sites into there this season. So it's getting more clustered in that area, and that's because we're looking at the benefit of separating the basin itself. One positive note that also happened is during the February 15th last year storm event. Many of the meters, or several of the meters in this Upper Truckee Basin, detected a spike in the flows. The district's repair crew went out to investigate and determined that there's actually a sewer manhole cone that had been shifted due to El Dorado County snow removal operations, creating a drain. And so we were taking on quite a bit of flow. And the district's crew made that, was able to respond to this flow, or this spike, and we were able to stop that spike from staying a high level that we saw. So this graphic shows pointing out where the inflow was, meaning flowing straight into this hole, and then infiltration. And so to kind of bring up and quantify what that means, Julie made the point that it's probably a good idea to actually tell you guys what that might actually mean for us. So in about a 24-hour period, we saw approximately 500,000 gallons in that day come through that line, or through that spike that we're seeing in this graph. it probably cost us somewhere in the magnitude of $3,800 for that small spike. So if that would have lasted longer, you can do the math and take it out. Now, we probably did still pay quite a bit for what you see as infiltration. That's the downward flow. So a large rain event comes, we will get spikes from the inflow. The infiltration is other sources seeping into our systems, right? So that downward curve is the infiltration, and that's a slower turnoff, right? So there's a lot of savings to be had if we can identify where this is happening and make adjustments as soon as possible. So efforts are assisting in isolating I&I sources, and projects also providing good data for collaboration, as I mentioned, of the hydrologic model for the service, for the district. With that data, after doing it, we determined that it'd be nice to go out and understand the storage potential of water that's sitting out there, or the snowpack. So, the district, Chris, you have a question? No. Last year we decided that we should look into taking snowpack monitoring more seriously, and we embrace on that, taking measurements throughout the field season, and snowpack data in conjunction with flow monitoring data also provides more realistic or a better estimate for the combined I&I throughout our collection system. We're mainly looking for the snow water equivalent, or the amount of water that's being stored in the snow. So going out there and taking these samples, it's important just to understand what water's sitting on top of the ground, and when a rain on snow event comes, we can have a better idea of our potential of the water that may be turned into infiltration into our system. We start somewhere near December 1st and fall through to May. To get the best data we can, we're watching the weather, and when we have a chance, we're going to get out just before a large storm event, take monitoring samples at the snowpacks or the snow course sites, and get out there just after the event happens. So if we have a rain on snow event, we want to capture what happens with that snow column or the snowpack, and try and understand how much we lost or how much is stored in the snow. So there's two different methods for doing this that are kind of recognized. One of them is a snow pillow, and that's like we've seen on at Fallen Leaf Lake. If you've ever visited that site, where snow falls on the ground, and a lot of sensors and other equipment will be able to determine what the snow water equivalent is. A little bit easier and less demanding in terms of resources would be doing the federal snow sampling. That's the snow poles or posts that you see in the paper, and NRCS does out at Phillips, and we get to read about what the snowpack's doing. We chose, since this system was a lot cheaper by large magnitudes, it was about $2,000 to buy the federal snow samplers, opposed to a large investment and land needed for a snow pillow site. We have two sites that we actively took samples on last year. One's right here on the backside of SCDD's boneyard, and then the other is out on Mountain Trout, out on the Upper Truckee watershed, sewer basin.
You just started last year.
This last year was the first time we've done it, and we're continuing this year as well. So this is the Tahoe site, or the site here at STPE grounds. You see a picture of the transect. Basically, we start where this post is for the first sample. You'll move down the line and take samples at every 50-foot interval until you have 6 samples is what we're doing. So then you can average this together and create data points, or create what the average snowpack or SWE is. And then the other side out of Mountain Trout is sitting close to the meadow. That's Acorn Creek just to the south of it. And same thing, we have a transect that we draw and get samples off of, called the snow course. So as we're out there, typically we're doing it in soft snow or deep snow. The process isn't highly technical, but it is a little bit time consuming in terms of having staff out there and the time to do it. So we'll take our samples and then we record it. And I took the NRCS's data, the sheet, basically, the recording sheet for information, and I kind of modified it for our needs. Results were positive. We were able to successfully take good data. Field collections were taken 8 times for 8 different days. And the graphs that I'll show you in a second include the snowpack height, the snow water equivalent, and also the density at the site. So we can get kind of a density of the actual snow itself. That's important because you might have a layer that's only as thick but that's solid ice, meaning the density is really tight, it's all water almost. So the graphs that I'm showing you, you'll notice, and I can let it run again, that they're very closely matched to the NRCS's Fallen Leaf Lake site. So if this is the Snow Cove site, you'll notice theirs is more jagged, meaning they're getting points hourly. We're getting 8 or 10 points throughout the season. So I think that the data shows that it was valuable and showed the same type of trends. And we're able to use that data to better understand what's going on with our snowpack. So as I mentioned, we're planning on moving forward. We already took one of our sampling dates on the 2nd of this month, and we had a little bit of snowpack. Didn't go back out after these last storms, but the snowpack kind of stayed about the same when I went out and tested in a couple spots. So that was a quick summary. I know it was real brief. I didn't want to take up too much time.
So your goal with the snow courses is to try to get a correlation between snowpack and what you might see in your flow meters, right?
Not necessarily. I think the goal for doing the snowpack monitoring is to understand what the stored potential is throughout our collection system. So with saying that, stored potential meaning if we have a large rain on snow event, what do we need to be planning for if we have, a large snowpack with lots of snow water equivalent? If we get one of these large rain on snow events or a rain event during the middle of winter, I think we can better prepare ourselves for what that potential might be.
You've looked at the existing snow cover sites, right?
Correct. Yeah, and the reason we didn't
They don't report as often as what you're looking at. Is that your issues?
Correct. They're usually
I'm talking about the other ones.
correct. They're usually first of the month and about four samples a year. They're also at higher elevations, which isn't giving us real-time data for what we see like in the upper Truckee survey basin. So yes, they could be used to correlate and assume some information, but due to every year being different with snowpack arriving higher or lower every year, and maybe throughout the future that snowpack raising higher and higher, we may not see snowpack down here or have a completely different snowpack than what we might see with the NRCS sites. So that was why we chose to do a couple down here and try and get real-time data for our system.
So, two of the things I think about this program doing for us is, as Jason's saying, it allows us to be prepared for what's going to come at us during a storm event that maybe we're predicting an atmospheric river coming towards us. So there's that near-term response need, as well as, I think actually, in my mind, that one of the more valuable uses of this, both storm or flow monitoring and the snow analysis, is making sure that we are designing our system to be able to handle the right level of I&I and what's actually going to come at us, because there's not a lot of really good data and correlation out there saying for this much snow, this is how that is going to turn into rain or turn into moisture that's going to be in the ground that's then going to turn into I&I. And so by correlating the snowpack information with the storms and the flow modeling, we're able to say then, okay, this is what a 25-year storm represents, this is what we should design the system for, or this is what a 10-year or a 5-year event looks like. And therefore, as we continue to rebuild our system, for example, the Upper Truckee pump station, the investments there, the Palm Leaf, Tahoe East pump station, it allows us to hone in on make sure that we're designing for the right levels of inflow in that infrastructure as well as here at the plant going forward.
Are you familiar with what KPO, Pasadena, and NOAA are doing? Using the LiDAR.
Right.
And they're only like 130 snowfills in Sierras. And with the LiDAR, they think that they can narrow this down and measure the water in a meter, 1 square meter. So
Well, I did see a summary of this and some aerial footage that they had ran on when they were looking at it. So I saw a summary of that. I think that might be good data that comes out of the
this last year, the legislature gave the Department of Water Resources quite a bit of money to expand it. And I think last year was their first year that they included the Tahoe Basin. They've been started out, I think, in Mammoth and then up north somewhere.
That's where I saw summary from.
Yeah, and so they may have some data for much more data. Soon you might check with them. There's a scientist by the name. His last name was Payne. Remember that? So I got some more information when we get close.
I think you'll find that, watch your densities on this as you do it. I think you're going to find that, I've done a lot of this research on this for the last 30 years, because I've worked with different building departments on establishing snow limit criteria. So what you're going to find when you measure around the basin and on any given date, regardless of where you are, you're going to get very similar densities. And that's going to give you the ability to just be able to stick a tape measure in the ground and know about what the water content is. And based on my findings, that's true, because saturated snow can only hold so much water. The ice layers at the bottom are time dependent, so that's the same time on the snowpack. So it'd be interesting to see what you come up with and let me know what your observations are.
Yeah, no, I think I was kind of finding the same thing.
Yeah.
Two sites which are,
Well, I find
find
it's very, very easy when people call me and ask me if they need to shovel their roof, because I can tell by how many feet is on the roof exactly what it weighs.
Right.
The answer's always yes.
Never say no, you're the one.
Right.
Well, thank you for your time.
Okay, I think we are ready, unless, Shelley's gonna sneak in here.
You didn't think you were going to get by without a quick update. I have 2 quick things I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on. One that I was whispering with Tammy about is, as you guys know, the city named Ameca in Jalisco, Mexico as the city's, as our sister city. And when the Ameca delegation was here this summer, the 2 highest priorities in their town that they identified as issues were water management, contaminated water, as well as waste management. So while they were here, we did a last-minute tour for them to tour our wastewater treatment plant, as well as them touring South Tahoe Refuse. And there was a lot of really great interactions talking about what we're doing. And the feedback from our staff was, I wish we had more time with them to explain our processes, because Ameca really needs this. So the city is currently organizing a trip for Tahoe folks to go down to Ameca to see how their operations work. The tentative dates for that are February 12th through the 16th or 17th. They're still working out. So the hope is there will be council as well as city staff. For folks from South Tahoe Refuse will likely attend, and they've invited district staff to come, staff and board to come as well. They're still working out the details, but they're thinking that once we get down there, the lodging, transit, and food costs will be covered. So the cost is really a flight down there. And we're thinking it would be beneficial to send someone from our staff that really knows our operations so that they can get into the technical details with Omeka's water folks to talk about water treatment and wastewater management. But I wanted to open up the invite to you guys as well. Right now, Omeka doesn't charge for water or wastewater or trash. So there's a political element of that too, of figuring out how do you create a rate structure, how do you charge a community for these services. So if you are interested in attending, reach out to John. This is still in its infancy. I know the city's still trying to figure out details. We haven't even reached out to staff yet. I just wanted to bring it up to you guys first to get your thoughts and level of interest.
I think it's a great idea. Sharing our expertise and the way work the staff is doing and to help someone else out, I think it's an humble opportunity. Thank you for chasing it down.
On that, I would say we have some very competent and capable Spanish-speaking technical staff that I think actually they may really benefit from some input.
Because Omeka has a treatment, so I understand they have a treatment facility, but they don't use it.
I have no idea.
I know that they aren't currently treating wastewater. Right.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, but they
I
have.
have heard that they have a facility, but they don't use it, which is a shame.
So reach out to John if any of you individually have interest in joining this coalition. We'll probably keep working at the staff level to identify one or two staff that would be good representatives and to help just share that knowledge. And we'll obviously be working with the city as we move forward. So that was one thing I wanted to update you on. And the second thing, this is just a heads up for you guys of what one of our partner water districts is doing. So we work really closely with Lukens. We've been working closely with them on the PCE contamination. As you know, they just received a grant from the state to fully fund the installation of a new well that will be breaking ground this spring. So that's all great. I just wanted to give you a heads up that they're currently in the midst of proposing a rate increase. They are regulated differently than us. We're a special district. We're a public agency regulated by Prop 218. They're regulated by the Public Utility Commission. So they're currently proposing a 57.59% revenue increase. Their last revenue increase was back in 2015, and that was a 62% increase. And just like the district's rate increases, the overarching, that percentage looks differently per customer class and actual rates. So they filed this increase back in March. They held a meeting back in May. The PUC has been doing an extensive review. At their January meeting, the Public Utilities Commission will be deciding on this increase. And just to give you a heads up, because I think it's nice to know what our partners are doing, the monthly bill for an average residential customer with a 1-inch meter, and they calculate it using 600 cubic feet per month, will increase from $48 to $81, which is about a 65% increase for Lukens. To give you just a little bit of a reference for the district, for our average residential customer with a 3/4-inch meter using 600 cubic feet, they pay $55 per month. So that's just more of a heads up. If you're interested in seeing the full report, it's on the Public Utilities Commission's website, but just want to give you a heads up in case you get any questions.
Great, thanks. Anything else? Well, the good news is we don't have any closed sessions, so you can see the past and future meetings. If nothing else is going on, let's adjourn this. Thanks.